E.c. we have the body here, and the record as has been made, and that which may be made. We have also the record with the manifestations as exhibited in the entity with the will and that condition as is shown respecting conditions surrounding the individual, in reference to the astrological conditions of the time and the effect as has been shown in the present entity's sojourn here. As to the time, we find this was at 10:58 am, and the completion of the entity, soul, spirit and the physical completed near noon. As to the planetary conditions and those affecting this life, irrespective of all's influence in same, are as these. We find the sojourn from that of Mercury, with the influence of Mars and of Jupiter, and Venus and Saturn being those in both helpful and detrimental signs. Hence we have one that has been considered in the physical as one physically weak, yet strong mentally. We have one whose greater influence has been in that of secretaryship, and inability to carry out those having to do with the mental processes of developing, whether in the spiritual or physical plane as exhibited in Earth's plane. As to the sign, we find one under the contradictory sign of both fire and water, and one then who, without the manifestation of will's force in the body in younger days, prone to be in many disputes, yet ever with the mental force is able to succeed in most instances. One whose greater vocation lies in that area of mental processes dealing with those things of a diplomatic nature, but one that of necessity must govern that temperamental condition arising in their sphere. One whose influence among others has counted for more than the individual has ever given itself. One whose love of the home has often been misinterpreted and misunderstood from the conditions existing in Venus and Saturn in detrimental conditions, and especially these arising at times when these, Saturn and Venus, were in the constellation as is shown in the birth sign, Pisces and Aries and Aquarius both, and all giving its effect according to all's influence in the entity's actions in this present plane. One who will in the next 2 years reach the height of its earthly ambitions, and will then begin with the conditions as will surround same from then on being rather the declining effects of this earthly influence, save by exertions of all's influence towards things that have to do with the mystic or occult forces, and in this, with all's influence, Jupiter's forces will be manifestations in the earthly forces applied in and through this entity. As for the appearances, we find these have been in many. Before this, we find in the days of the Crusade, and this entity then lead in that crusade, or that known as the Holy War in Palestine, and lost its existence then in that land, and was the second in command at that time. In the present we find this personality exhibited in the love of the study of conditions relative to these crusades made. Before this, we find in the land when the rebuildings for the walls were begun, and when Sanballat resisted those under the guidance of the ruler, this entity then kept the south wall and builded above the gates. And in this present sphere we find the personality as is shown in stature and in the effects of such crusades intermingled with the second in its individual life. Hard to understand, yet giving much to many, and before this, we find in the land of Bozida, Atlantis, when Alta was in the height of its civilization. This entity then was in the service of the country in its relation to other countries, and in the present sphere we find the desire for similar relations ever in the inmost soul of this present entity. Before this, we find when the earth's forces were called into existence, and the sons of God came together, and the sounding of the coming of the man was given. This entity was there,